If you weren't able to pick up a handout out in the lobby, feel free to pop back out there. The handouts will show you the different boundary proposals that we're going to share with you this evening. So we're going to give about 1 minute. We're going to get started. Okay, I think we're ready to go. First of all, I want to say good evening. Thank you for coming out in the snow, the big snowflakes that just started here a little bit ago. Tonight's all about modernizing the elementary experience in neighborhood schools, in Middletown City Schools. And back in October, I shared with everyone at a board meeting that we were undergoing a redistricting campaign and project this school year, and here we are in December. So back in October, we shared information, shared data. We had Wolpert, the organization that we're working with, come out and share information with the public. We went through a survey, collected quite a bit of feedback. We've been working diligently, we being the district leadership and some of our principals, working diligently with Wolpert, the organization that we've been collaborating with. But as we're going through this work in the past couple months, the whole, let's see, there we go. Well, maybe not. It didn't go. We're missing a slide, Ashley. Yeah, so I could talk with no slide. There we go. We've had 3 design principles as we've entered into this work, and we continue to work. And really, number 1, student success through a strong sense of community, students attending their neighborhood schools, and then the 3rd guiding principle is optimal utilization of district resources and facilities. The number 1 important point coming back from the survey was that the community and the parents, neighborhood schools was number 1, resounding. Number 1 was neighborhood schools. Number 2 was minimal movement of students. Okay, let's see, in the right direction. Student success, we talk about as few transitions as possible for our students as they're moving through the kindergarten through 12th grade experience. We see what transitions take students a little bit of time each time they switch schools. So it's about minimizing those transitions in K through 12. And it's all about the success of our students. Attending neighborhood schools, I shared that with you. Number 1, it's coming back from the survey. Also attending neighborhood schools, there's so much out there about the importance of the strong connections when you students attend neighborhood school, the sense of belonging, and also there's always a cost of financial savings when students attend their neighborhood schools. Okay? And then optimal utilization. Optimal utilization is that, simply put, you want to use your buildings in a way that you're heating appropriately, you're cooling appropriately, you're using your resources appropriately. It's wear and tear on your buildings, just simply stated. So tonight, we're going to be talking about, Wolpert's going to be sharing with you we have 4 different boundary proposals that we're sharing tonight. And what a boundary proposal is, it is, Karen's going to be talking to you about the different neighborhoods that could possibly be affected by the redistricting. One thing I wanted to make clear is no decisions have been made. We are still collecting input from our community. We want to hear what you have to say. Tonight's all about sharing those boundaries. Also, Karen's going to be sharing with you some commonalities between each one of the proposals. For instance, Central Academy moving over to the Highview building. That's just one of them. So she'll be sharing. Tonight's main goal is sharing the boundaries and seeing if and then after Karen introduces the boundaries, you'll have an opportunity to go back and check out the boundaries. We have 2 sets of boundaries, and ask Karen from Wolpert those particular questions that you may have. And then also, some of you all may already checked this out, but this is all online. Okay, so the presentation that Karen's going to share with you is online. There's a school locator online. The presentation's online. There's even a video of the presentation. So everything you're going to hear tonight is also online. So if you go home and you have additional questions, please pull it up right on the district's redistricting site, and the information's there. Karen's also going to share with you your opportunity and how you can provide feedback. So we encourage everyone here tonight, good, bad, and different, please use the QR code, get on, and provide your feedback. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Karen from Wolpert, and she's going to walk you through the 4 different proposals, boundary proposals, and then at the end, have the opportunity to ask questions around the maps. So Karen, welcome aboard. I think Ashley's getting you set up and ready to go.
All right. Sorry, I'm kind of a giant. Gonna move that. All right, well, while we're waiting, my name is Karen Jackson, and my company, Wolpert, does this work all over the country. We are a K-12 planning team, and that is our primary focus. So, I don't like that. Mainly what we do is enrollment projections, demographics, and redistricting. Still waiting on those slides. Well, something else I can cover while we're waiting. I did want to let you all know, as you may have noticed, there are not board members here. That was on my request. It is not very useful in this process for feedback to go to them and then them have to play telephone and give it back to me. So that was my direction to them, not to come tonight. It is so much better if the feedback comes to me and the questions come to me, because we can do something about it and make changes because of it. So something to know, all of the board members did want to come, but I encouraged them not to for those reasons. Yeah, they are watching, so they will receive all of the feedback as well that we receive. Okay, yeah, we'll go over the process, and then maybe I'll just skip over those slides. So this is a really iterative process. We started off the process by collecting all sorts of data, and if you're interested in the data that we've collected, we do have a background report available on the project website, as well as a couple different presentations that contain that information. And you can go and see like the current state of the schools, so current utilizations at buildings, where students reside versus where they live, density maps showing where your population densities are. We did that probably September, October of this year, so we've been working on this for quite a while at this point. We next did that criteria survey. So if you didn't respond to the initial survey, we asked folks to give us their top 3 criteria when looking at boundaries. This is anything from keeping neighborhoods together, allowing students to go to their closest school, things like that. So we asked that of you a couple months ago. We do have a full report if you're interested to see what your neighbors responded with. We do have a full report again on that project website. We then used that criteria to create boundary options. We actually had a lot more boundary options that are shown today. These are the 4 that kind of rose to the top. As I mentioned earlier, this is an iterative process. So what we're trying to do is bring you options so that we can make adjustments based on your feedback. So that brings us to today. We have our 4 options that we're asking for feedback on. Each option does solve the utilization issues a little bit differently, and you'll notice that the maps do look pretty different from one another, and this was purposeful. We really want to see what people think about each boundary option so that when it comes time to make a recommendation, we can combine options. So that's really important. We are going to use your feedback that we receive within this survey to create a recommendation that we're going to bring to the board either late January, early February. We are going to try as much as possible to incorporate the feedback that we receive. And typically what that looks like is not any one of the 4 options that I'm sharing today being the recommendation, but a combination. We'll take the best parts of the options that we hear from the feedback and bring that to the board for approval. So, like I said, it may not be one of these 4 options that is recommended. It will likely be a combination of options, one that makes accommodations for feedback as we receive it. Once we present the recommendation to the board, it will be on them to request changes if they have any. Otherwise, we will ask them to take a vote on it, and hopefully we get approval. Again, we are anticipating that that is at the end of January or early in February. So you should know what the boundaries will look like next year by then. Aha, there it is, okay. Thank goodness, I am not good at going without slides. So I am just gonna kind of breeze past these process slides since I kind of already touched on that. Full disclosure, I am sharing the same exact presentation that's on the website today, so if you've already looked at it, it is the same. If you're more interested in the process, because I didn't go over everything specifically, please, please, please look at that presentation, that video that I've narrated. So, like I said, we're gonna skip past all of this. All right, and then here's our timeline. Like I said, end of January, early February is when we're anticipating a vote to occur. So just a couple notes on stakeholder roles within this process. The community is we're really utilizing the community feedback to inform the recommendation. So your feedback will guide the process in how we move forward with options. The administration team is going to make the recommendation, so that is the group that I will work with to come up with that recommendation based on that feedback. And then, of course, there's our board. Again, I did ask the board not to join tonight because it's a little bit counterintuitive for them to receive feedback just to play telephone to give it back to me. Their job is to approve the recommendation and oversee the process. I've mentioned the project website a couple of times, and I hope that since you're here, you've already looked at the project website, but if you haven't, please use that QR code or the URL on the bottom if you can read it to visit the website. There is a lot of really good information on there. We have, if you're interested in enrollment projections, there's an enrollment projections report that shows enrollment projections for the next 10 years. We have that background report on there. We have all of the information we're sharing tonight with you, the links to the surveys, and more. So please, please, please utilize that project website. As we get questions, even tonight, we'll probably make updates to the website based on the questions that we're receiving, and those will all be added to the FAQ section. So this website is updated pretty consistently, so please go back and check because there's probably going to be new information weekly. All right. So just a little bit about the survey. As I mentioned earlier, we did ask folks to kind of rank or give us their top 3 criteria that we usually see. And this list contains the criteria that we typically see across the nation. For a lot of, sometimes when districts do this process frequently because they're closing schools or building schools, et cetera, boards will adopt a policy that does this. So that's where this criteria comes from. It's pretty standard. This is usually what we see in redistricting processes across the country. So when we asked folks to select their top 3 factors, the top 4 factors that rose to the top were to attempt to create boundaries that assign students to their nearest school, attempt to modify boundaries in a way that impacts the fewest number of students, attempt to create boundaries that assign entire neighborhoods to the same school, and attempt to create boundaries that balance enrollments among schools equitably. Something that is really important with these criteria is they oftentimes contradict one another. In order to get more students to their closest school, we're gonna have to move more kids. So they can contradict one another, so we can't say an option is invalid because it doesn't follow one criteria, because it probably follows the others. All right, so I'm gonna go through a couple of those background data sets. Again, there is a lot more information on the project website if you're interested in seeing what these have to say. So I don't think I mentioned this in my process overview, but we did begin the process by looking at the capacities of each of the schools. This includes, at the elementary level, the capacities are based on the number of homerooms, not necessarily the total number of rooms within the buildings. For example, any resource or intervention space, because those are typically pull-out spaces and students don't spend all day there, we do not assign a capacity to those spaces. Same goes for specials, so art, music, PE, there's another one that I'm forgetting in there. But all of those, they would not receive a capacity either because, again, those are pull-out spaces. So only homerooms received a capacity. But if you look at that far right column, that is showing the program capacity. And again, this capacity is based on the programs that exist within the buildings today. It's not necessarily building code or fire code by any means. So the map and chart on this slide show the existing boundaries. All of the metrics throughout this whole process have been showing K through 6 enrollments. So keep that in mind. Today, we're K5. Next year, we will be K6. So everything you're going to see is showing K through 6 enrollment. Should we put the 6th graders back into the elementary schools today, we would have Mayfield utilized at 97%, so getting pretty close to overutilized. That means there is no room for flexibility. If you have an especially large class come through the system, they would not fit in that building. 3% leftover is not enough at Mayfield. Whereas at the other schools, we have underutilization. In terms of walkability, 1,087 students can currently walk. They reside within a walk zone. Do they walk? We're not sure. They may be driven, but they do reside within a walk zone, and the walk zones do not get transportation. Looking at those who are assigned to their closest school, 74% of students today are assigned to their first closest school. We have 16% of students assigned to their second closest school, 1% assigned to their third closest, and 8% assigned to their fourth, fifth, or sixth closest school out of 6. So that 8% is important. That number goes down in every single one of our options. Something else to note on this slide, the totals in that chart do not include Central Academy because that is not a neighborhood school. The chart on the left here is showing where students live versus where they attend. The chart can be read both horizontally and vertically. So if you look horizontally, this is showing the students that attend each of the schools on that axis from where they reside. So at Amanda, we have like 369 students that both live in the Amanda boundary and attend Amanda. We have a few students that live in the Amanda boundary that attend Creekview and so on. If you look at it vertically, you can see where students who attend each school are coming from. The map on the right is showing the student density. So this is showing the students per square mile within the district. The blue areas are showing fewer students per square mile. I think it's 10 or less students per square mile. The oranges and reds are showing a greater number of students per square mile, up to, I believe, 1,000. But this really gives you an idea of where the hotspots of density exist within your district. It also is important to note because some of the boundaries may look kind of strange. That is based solely on population density, where your populations exist. If the density was consistent throughout, that would be great because we would have nice, beautiful, clean lines, but that is not the case. Populations move, and they move every single year, so it's something that we're tracking and good information to have. Oftentimes in these processes, we get asked the question, well, why can't everybody just attend their closest school? And it's a great question. If we could pick up all of the schools and move them to where the populations exist, yes, absolutely, we could send every kid to their closest school. Unfortunately, technology does not exist to do that. So what this slide is showing is if everybody attended their geographically closest school, what the boundaries would look like, and what the utilizations at schools would look like. So should we adopt an option like this, which, full disclosure, this is not an option, it is not going to work. Poor Mayfield Elementary would be sitting at almost 150% utilized, while we would have a couple other schools that are 25, 26% utilized. So as I mentioned, it is a great question. We always get this question. Unfortunately, just based on where the schools are and where the populations have shifted over time, this is not going to be possible for every single student. Something that we have focused on, though, is assigning as many students as we can to their closest school or their second or third closest school. So this is information we're looking at. We utilized it to come up with boundary options. Unfortunately, we cannot do this for every single student within the district. All right, so moving on to our boundary options, this is going to be the more exciting part, of course. We have 4 different boundary options to share with you. And as I mentioned, each option does solve utilization issues a little bit differently. If you haven't had a chance to look at our school locator, please do. It's on the project website, there's a link to it. It allows you just to type in your address and it'll spit out exactly where your address is assigned in every single option. The maps on these pages, while they look nice, it's pretty difficult to tell where you reside within these. Even in the larger maps, it's kind of difficult to tell. That locator is going to be the best resource for figuring out where your house sits in all of these options. So looking at option 1, in all of our options, Central Academy moves into the Highview building. So all of the values seen in all of our charts assume that Central Academy continues to enroll a similar number of students, but those students now just exist in the Highview building rather than the Central Academy building. Along with that, once the students move out of Central Academy and into Highview, we would have Central Academy turn into the ELC space. Something to note in our first 3 options, because the top criteria that we received from the community was to assign students to their nearest school where possible, the Amanda Elementary boundary is reduced in the first 3 options to account for that, because there is a big contingent of the Amanda boundary that is much closer to 3 or 4 different other schools rather than Amanda. Amanda's just pretty far out there. So in looking at option 1, we would have, let's see, 33% of students could walk to school. This is a 10 student difference from the current boundaries. Looking at those who are assigned to their closest school, we have 73% assigned to their first closest school, 20% assigned to their second closest school, 4% third closest school, and then 4% to their 4th, 5th, or 6th closest school. In this option, we're moving 296 students. Something that's in your options packet that I just want to explain, there is a chart on the bottom right in your options packet. This is showing the number of students moved based on where they're coming from and going to. So if we're on option 1 here, if you look at option 1, you can see the Central Academy, all 355 students would move into Highview. If you look at Amanda Elementary, there would be 334 students that stay in the Amanda boundary and 185 would move to Rosa Parks. So does that make sense? If you look at it vertically, you can see, or horizontally, you can see where students are going from each of the boundaries. All right. So these maps, this is showing the same information. It's the same map. The map on the right is just zoomed in. So what this is showing is where each area is moving to. The colors, the outlines, and the hash marks within those boxes are showing the area or the boundary that area is moving to. So for example, let's see if this, does that work? Haha, it does. So this area right here would move from Mayfield to Creekview. This area right here, full disclosure, there's no students in this area. It just makes the boundary look nicer. Would move from Amanda to Mayfield. These blue sections up here would move from Amanda to Rosa Parks, and then these purple sections right here would move from Mayfield to Miller Ridge. All right, moving on to option 2. So again, in option 2, Central Academy would move to the Highview building, and then the current Central Academy building would be repurposed for ELC space. Again, in this option, Amanda Elementary's boundary is reduced in that the sole purpose of that is to allow more students to attend a school geographically closer to their home. In option 2, there is a 3 student difference in walkability, so we're at 33% of students could walk. It's 3 students different from current. In terms of those who attend their closest school, we have 71% attending their first closest school, 20% their second closest school, and 4% attending their third closest school. This option does move more than option 1. We're at 360 students moved. And again, that chart in the bottom is showing where students are moving from and into. So looking at this map, again, this is showing the current boundaries overlaid by the areas of change. So this section right here would be moving from Amanda to Rosa Parks. This little area right here, actually both of these areas right here, would move from Mayfield to Rosa Parks. This little guy would move from Mayfield to Miller Ridge. And then we have a section up here that would move from Rosa Parks to Wildwood, and a small section down here that would move from Rosa Parks into Amanda Elementary. All right, moving on to option 3. So I'm going to echo what I said before in option 3. Option 3 also has Central Academy moving into the Highview building and then ELC space taking over the current Central Academy building. In this option, we do improve walkability. We're at 34% of students would be able to walk. That is an improvement from today. Unfortunately, this option does move the most students at 522. In terms of students attending their closest schools, we have 72% attending their first closest, 18% attending their second closest school, and 4% attending their third closest school, with 6% attending greater than their third closest school, so fourth, fifth, or sixth. There are a lot of areas of change in this one, so I'm just going to try to go through these quickly. This section down here would move from Mayfield to Amanda. Again, this orange section right here, there are no students that live there. It would move from Amanda to Mayfield. We have this little section right here that's really close to Creekview, would move from Miller Ridge into Creekview. All of these purple areas in here would move into Miller Ridge. This section right here would move from Miller Ridge into Wildwood, as well as up here. And then we have a couple different areas down here moving into Rosa Parks Elementary. All right, and last option, option 4. So option 4 is a little bit different than the other two. We'll go over similarities first. So again, in this option, Central Academy would move into Highview. Excuse me, and let's see, ELC space would take over the current Central Academy building. In this option, we focused more on the second highest criteria, which was reducing the number of students moved. That was a highly rated criteria that we heard from you, so that's what we focused on in this option, was moving the fewest number of students as possible. So in this case, the Rosa Parks boundary would remain exactly the same as it is today, and this does reduce the number of students that are moved. In this option, we would have exactly the same number of students walkable as we do today. That is because the changes are pretty minimal. In terms of students attending their first, second, third closest school, we're at 71% attending their first closest, 16% attending their second closest school, 1% attending their third closest, and this actually has the most students attending their fourth, fifth, or sixth closest school at 11%, and that is more than currently today. On the other hand, this option does move the fewest number of students at 101. So there's drawbacks, but there's also some positive portions of this option as well. In looking at option 4, the only change that is made is moving students out of Mayfield and into Miller Ridge. So you can see this area kind of in center Middletown would move to from Mayfield into Miller Ridge, and that is because Mayfield will be overutilized or almost overutilized if the boundary remains exactly the same as it is today. So before I get into next steps, I do want to go over a couple of things. After I'm done with this presentation, what we're going to have you do is we have 2 sets of all 4 options set up. There's one out in the hallway in the best lit area we could find, and one right behind you back there. So what we typically like to do is if you have questions, please stick around. We will be happy to answer those. We will come around, but feel free to get up and move out to the lobby, and we'll meet you out there and answer your questions there. Should you have questions beyond tonight, like let's say you get home and you have a question that you didn't ask, well, that's totally fine. We are going to add a submit a question function to that project website, so if you have additional questions after tonight, or if you're watching online and you weren't able to come tonight, we do have the opportunity for additional questions to be asked. So with that, the online survey will be open through the end of December. That being said, please take it sooner rather than later because people usually forget about redistricting as soon as the holidays hit. The feedback that we receive will be used to inform the recommendation. The more feedback that we get in this process, the better the outcome is going to be. So please keep that in mind. Even if you're not impacted by this process at all, we still want to hear from you. This is a community-driven process, and we want to hear the voice the voices of all of the community, not just those impacted. The QR code on this slide will take you to the survey, but there's also a QR code on the, I am so sorry. There's also a QR code on the front of this that you can get to. If you're on the project website, there's also links on the project website as well. Again, for anybody that just came in, I just want to tell you, I encourage the board members are not here tonight. That was based on my encouragement. It is not very helpful for them to come here and then play telephone with me giving me feedback. It's way better if I get the feedback. Even if you give me feedback tonight, that's great. We will take that into account. I also want you to take the survey. If you take the survey and all of a sudden you have additional feedback for whatever reason, please do not hesitate to take it again. If you're not egregious about the survey, it's not going to impact me. If you take it 100 times, I'm gonna have some issues, but if you take it 2 or 3, it's really okay. We'll be able to filter through it. And all the survey is asking is for comments on each option, and we're really gonna use those comments to inform that recommendation. Did I go over everything? All right, and with that, what we're gonna do is if you have questions, please stick around. We're here until 8 o'clock, so you can get up, go out into the lobby. If you wanna look at the big maps, we have one set right in the back there. We have another set out there. And we will meet you out there and come around and answer questions as they come up. So thank you all for coming tonight, and I hope I get to talk to each of you. Do I have to turn this off?